We have to first, I mean, in terms of this center around precious metals, yeah. I mean, the central bank's buying at a level the world has never seen. And in fact, over the last 2 months, their numbers have gone up twice the 12-month moving average. This is a trend that is capping the year at a ferocious pace. They're not stopping their accumulation. They're just being a little bit more clandestine about it, if you will. They're being less transparent, less forthright, less open, and the import-export numbers coming out of London and Switzerland are somewhat paying reference to that. Of course, that's a big deal, right? But maybe not as big of a deal as a change in administration, of course. And I think most of us here would say we feel blessed that Trump has won the election, and that will transition into hopefully getting our culture back. We've lived through 4 years worth of bizarro world where everything that all of us who I think thank God every day without putting words in your mouths that we were born in this country that gave us the opportunities that it did, where we worked hard and our merit was something that was valued rather than our lifestyle, where we didn't have to worry about walking the city streets at night, where election integrity, the integrity of our pillars of our society, the FBI, as an example, the judicial system, all of these things just went haywire. And so for me, it's a real big deal, huge deal that we are moving in a direction of getting our culture back. And I think that to me is more important than just about anything else financially. So for me, the two big deals are not only a continuation of the rampant purchasing by the central banks, but actually a doubling down as we get close to the end of the year, and bringing Trump on board to restore sanity to our culture, to the things that made Americans feel special about being an American. To me, those are the two things that stand out more than anything.
Yeah, I agree with Andy. I think that the easiest, shortest way to say it is woke is dying. DEI is dying. Global warming. I mean, all of these things that are just ridiculous are dying and are being, the curtain's being pulled back. I think this year there was a sea change in, I guess I'll use the V word. The V word has been exposed for what it is, what it was. So, that's a good thing that the curtain got pulled back on that. From a financial standpoint, this year the U.S. paid over $1 trillion in interest only. And this is the year, I think, where the math is just starting to bite the system. The math is completely untenable, meaning the U.S. is insolvent and the U.S. issues the world's reserve currency. So you have a world's reserve currency issued by an insolvent. So I think that's very important. Yes, I absolutely agree. The change of administration is important, but I also would caution, just because of some of the things they're already talking about, the Noahide laws, early in this administration, we're going to find out that the First Amendment is going to be under attack. I know that sounds strange because of all the censorship that we've had in the past. But I think early in this administration, we're going to find out. We're going to find out the real nuts and bolts of the Trump administration. I'm not really happy with several or quite a few of his cabinet picks. And I also believe that the world is going to figure out that, in Trump, nobody can fix what's already been done because it's math, and the math it's already in the oven and on fire.
Yeah, well, you had China telling us that they took 6 months off from accumulating metals, which really wasn't true. In fact, the import-export numbers showed anything but that. And they were kind of caught. You saw the same thing with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia importing numbers importing metals that, again, attempted to not be reported to the IMF. And the numbers are far, far, far in excess of what we are being told. Aside from that, we see, for example, as we've talked about on your show a bunch, I've had numerous confirmations from mining executives that have told me indeed that China's flying all around the world, mostly in South America, and buying up doré and concentrate from the miners directly, which is disintermediating the marketplace, and it doesn't get reflected in the price or calculated in terms of how much they're actually buying. And it's not just silver, it's gold as well, although 70+% of the silver they're using in industries coming from concentrate purchases, where they're buying sludge in excess, in essence, rather, directly from the miners, paying more than the West will, sending it back to China and refining it. And so what we are seeing by all of these countries is a way for them to accumulate metal without it being cataloged or the IMF keeping track of it. And the PBOC is just a very small part of Chinese gold accumulation. The People's Liberation Army is thought to have as much or more as the PBOC because they are not required to report it directly to the IMF. Or as we were saying with the concentrate of the doré, if metal is purchased that is under the 999 or 995 purity, that's not reported. Or if it's being accumulated by proxy, if you will, by commercial banks on behalf of the PBOC, that's not reported. And the same thing is going on with Saudi Arabia, and the same thing is going on with India. These are very large state-sponsored sovereign wealth funds that aren't reporting it. The thing about what you're mentioning in particular is that the PBOC said we stopped buying gold for 6 months. In essence, they didn't. They just stopped reporting it and tried to hide it much more keenly, if you will. And I think it doesn't do anyone any good in a world where they're all racing to accumulate gold for some reason. Does it have anything to do with the Tier 1 revision? Does it have anything to do with all of the banks, what appears to be the central banks, setting the stage for maybe some sort of a gold revaluation? It doesn't behoove them to let the world know how much they're buying. And I think the import-export numbers kind of caught them trying to do that. And if that's what they're getting caught with, my guess is there's a whole lot more they're not telling us about. In terms of the way that they are very privately accumulating things around the world so that it's not directly a state-sponsored accumulation, but doing so kind of on the sly. And I think that is one of the things that I would take away from 2024 as well, and that is that massive accumulation and trying their best to kind of hide exactly how much they're accumulating and producing, for that matter, as well.
I do want to add to what Andy was talking about. Absolutely, you've got China trying to buy directly from miners. And that's a huge deal because that means there's going to be less metal that'll make it to refiners and thus less metal available for LBMA and for COMEX. One other thing is that very interesting, back in, I think it was October, Russia announced that they were going to be purchasing other commodities, and the first one they named was silver. And I mean, the supply and demand is on a knife's edge, so you get, additional demand is going to blow up the supply. From a short-term, technical standpoint, we're oversold again. I mean, we've seen multiple times this past year where the metals bottomed. I posted, and I think, Andy, you posted my charts also showing the bottom hooks. And I think what that illustrates is exactly what Andy was talking about, central banks stepping up and creating demand for gold. Not so much silver directly, but silver's going to move with gold. So I think that is definitely significant. And I really don't think it's important. If you're wanting to know, should I buy at 29? Should I buy at 27.75 or whatever? Who knows? And when all is said and done, it's not going to matter. The whole idea is that you're getting your capital out of the system and into something that cannot bankrupt. Because when this whole thing goes down, mark my words, the great taking is very real, and a lot of people, a huge amount of people, are going to be left with nothing.
Jeff Bezos has sold another $1.25 billion worth of Amazon in November, bringing his total up to almost $13 billion for the year. Zuckerberg cashed out $153 million worth of Meta stock last month. That brings him up to $2.4 billion over the last 12 months. And insiders in NVIDIA have sold over $2 billion year to date. And so, as Bill was saying, you have the insiders. Right now, it's a 6-to-1 discrepancy between insider buying and selling. You have 6 sellers on the inside for every 1 buyer. And this is at a period of time where over half the country feels that there's less than a 10% chance of a market crash. So you have the insiders leaving, and you have this irrational exuberance by the public. And I know that we've already closed this door, but I just found what I wanted to mention. You know, China said they went 6 months without buying anything and then bought 5 tons in November. The London import-export number said they bought 60 tons in September and 55 tons in October. They never reported it. So not as your eyes lied to you, I think, is what we're really trying to get at with a lot of this stuff, whether it be the strength in the marketplace, where we all believe that this euphoria is going to carry us with Trump, and there's no, you know, all of the craziness is behind us, all of the debt is behind us, all of this bad stuff is behind us, so the market can go forever. Yet the insiders are bailing, and Warren Buffett's sitting on over, $40 billion in cash. The same thing is true about the numbers that we're being told by the IMF, how much gold is being accumulated by the central banks. And they're using the Western suppression to run cover for it. And that's a prime example. China says we didn't buy anymore. That's 115 tons unaccounted for that they did buy over 2 months. That's just 2 of the 6 months they said they didn't buy. Anyways, I think that's kind of a common theme, is that what we are seeing is less than, at best, it's truth. And I think at some point, we have to start to see these things come together where, you know, the logic and the truth has to reflect in price, has to reflect in outcome. So yeah, it gets maddening, I'm sure, for people to listen to this stuff over and over and over again. But at some point, reality has to, you know, the rubber has to meet the road, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Maybe that happens this coming year.